Ambassador Rylan had prepared himself for many things as he stepped through the crystalline archway into Queen Seraphine's throne room. Hostile scrutiny, cold formality, perhaps even veiled threats. What he hadn't prepared for was her. The throne room of Valoria stretched before him like a cathedral carved from living amber, its walls pulsing with bioluminescent veins that cast everything in warm, golden light. But Ryland barely noticed the architecture. His entire awareness had collapsed to a single point: the woman. No, the queen, rising from her throne with fluid grace. Queen Seraphine was breathtaking. Her skin was the rich orange of a sunset on Earth, smooth and luminous, marked with delicate patterns that shimmered like gilded tattoos across her collarbones and temples. Blonde hair, pale as starlight, cascaded past her shoulders in intricate braids woven with threads of gold. Her eyes, violet and impossibly deep, locked onto his the moment he entered, and Ryland felt the universe shift beneath his feet. For 3 heartbeats, neither moved. The Valorian courtiers exchanged uncertain glances. Ryland's diplomatic attaché cleared her throat nervously. But Seraphine simply stared, her regal composure cracking just enough that Ryland saw something flicker across her features. Recognition, surprise, and something that looked dangerously like wonder. "Ambassador Ryland of Earth," she said finally, her voice like wind chimes in a storm, melodious yet commanding, "we welcome you to Valoria." "Your Majesty," Ryland managed, his voice steadier than his racing pulse. He executed the formal bow his briefing had prescribed, but when he rose, their eyes met again, and that same electric current arced between them. Seraphine descended the 7 steps from her throne with deliberate slowness, her flowing robes, the color of morning sky, trailing behind her. She stopped an arm's length away, closer than protocol dictated. This close, Ryland could see the faint gold flecks in her violet eyes, could smell something like jasmine and ozone. "You have come to negotiate peace between our worlds," she said softly, her gaze never wavering. "Yes," Ryland replied, struggling to remember the carefully rehearsed opening he'd practiced 1,000 times. Though now I find myself wondering if fate had other plans entirely. A smile ghosted across Seraphine's lips, vulnerable, uncertain, yet undeniably real. "Perhaps fate is wiser than either of us imagined, Ambassador." The negotiations began the following morning in a circular chamber with walls that displayed real-time star maps, trade routes, resource allocations, defensive pacts, all the dry machinery of diplomacy. Yet every technical discussion felt charged with unspoken meaning whenever Ryland's eyes found Seraphine's across the table. She was brilliant, he discovered, sharp as Damascus steel when defending her people's interests, yet generous when compromise served both worlds. Her advisors, a council of 7 Valorians with varying shades of orange and copper skin, watched their queen with barely concealed concern. They noticed, as Ryland did, how her attention lingered on the human ambassador, how her fingers would pause mid-gesture when he spoke. On the 3rd day, during a recess, Seraphine asked Ryland to walk with her in the palace gardens. Her attendants fell back at a discreet distance as they strolled between towering crystalline trees that sang in the wind. "Your world fascinates me," Seraphine admitted, her blonde hair catching the light of Valora's twin suns. "So much diversity in one species. So much passion." "We're complicated," I agreed, acutely aware of how close she walked beside me, "though I suspect Valorians aren't as uniform as you pretend." She laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that made my chest tighten. "You see too much, Ambassador." "Ryland," she corrected gently. "When we're alone, just Ryland." Seraphine stopped beside a fountain that defied gravity, water flowing upward in helical spirals. She reached out, letting the liquid dance across her fingertips, and I found myself mesmerized by the graceful movement. Almost without thinking, I extended my own hand, our fingers nearly touching in the floating stream. The water connected them, and Seraphine's breath caught. Our eyes met, and this time neither looked away.
"This is madness," she whispered, though she didn't withdraw her hand. "I'm a queen. You are an ambassador. Our peoples barely know each other." "I know," I said, my voice rough with emotion. "I've told myself the same thing every night since I arrived. But when I'm with you, Seraphine, none of that seems to matter." Her fingers closed around mine, warm and trembling. "I felt it the moment you entered my throne room, like lightning recognition, like remembering someone I've never met." "Yes, exactly that." We stood there, hands joined through falling water, knowing we stood on a precipice that would change everything. That evening, Seraphine broke every protocol by inviting Rylan to her private observatory, a glass dome at the palace's highest point where she studied the stars. Her advisors were scandalized, but she silenced them with a look that reminded everyone why she was queen. Ryland arrived to find her standing before a massive telescope, her blonde hair unbound and flowing freely down her back. She'd changed from her formal robes to something simpler, a flowing garment the color of twilight that made her orange skin seem to glow. "I come here when I need to remember how small we all are, how insignificant our problems seem against the vastness of space. And yet, it's those small, seemingly insignificant moments that give life meaning. This moment, for instance." Seraphine finally looked at me, and I saw tears glistening in her violet eyes. "I'm afraid, Rylan. I haven't allowed myself to feel this way in, perhaps, ever. Queens are taught to love their people, not individuals, to see partnerships as political alliances, not—" She faltered. "Not whatever this is," I finished gently. "I lost someone once," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Before I became queen, a childhood friend, a first love, innocent and pure. He died in the same uprising that took my parents, that forced me to take the throne at 20. I swore I would never be that vulnerable again." My heart ached for her. Slowly, giving her every chance to refuse, I reached up and cupped her face with my hand. Her skin was warm, impossibly soft. "I'm afraid, Rylan," she whispered. "I haven't allowed myself to feel this way in, perhaps, ever. Queens are taught to love their people, not individuals, to see partnerships as political alliances, not whatever this is. You are an ambassador. Your government will question your objectivity. Both our peoples will—" "Let them," I interrupted, my thumb gently wiping away her tear. "I didn't come across the galaxy to play it safe." She laughed through her tears, and then, as naturally as breathing, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead to his, a Valorian gesture of ultimate trust and intimacy. Rylan closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of her skin, the subtle thrum of her pulse. "Stay with me tonight," she whispered. "Just stay. Talk with me until the suns rise. Let me pretend, just for one night, that I'm not a queen, and you are not an ambassador. I'll stay as long as you want me," I promised, and meant it with every fiber of my being.
The attack came at dawn. Rylan woke to alarms splitting the air, and Seraphine bolting upright beside him, their innocent night of conversation and connection shattered by chaos. Through the observatory windows, he saw ships descending. Krillian raiders, Seraphine's sensors confirmed, a hostile species that had coveted Valora's resources for decades. "They know our defenses are down during the treaty talks," Seraphine said, already moving, her queen's authority snapping back into place like armor. "They're targeting the palace." Rylan's military training, often forgotten beneath his diplomatic credentials, surged forward. "The underground bunkers. Your people need to evacuate now." "My people, yes," Seraphine agreed, her blonde hair whipping as she turned to him. "But I must go to the defense platforms. If I can manually override—" "That's suicide," Rylan cut her off. "Those platforms are on the exposed eastern tower. The Krillians will target them first." Her violet eyes flashed with royal steel. "Then I'll die defending my world. That's what queens do, Rylan." Before he could argue, an explosion rocked the palace. Through the window, Rylan saw fire blooming from the eastern wing. Seraphine moved toward the door, but he caught her arm. "Let me go," he said urgently. "I trained as a combat engineer before I became a diplomat. I can reach those platforms and activate the defenses. You need to lead your people, coordinate evacuations. That's what queens do." "No," Seraphine said fiercely, gripping his shoulders. "I won't risk you. Not now. Not after." Another explosion, closer this time. The building shuddered. "Seraphine, listen to me," Rylam said, taking her face in his hands one last time. "I love you. I've loved you since the moment our eyes met, and I need you to live. Let me do this. Let me save you." Tears streamed down her orange cheeks, but she nodded, understanding the impossible choice. "If you die doing this, Rylan of Earth, I will never forgive you." He kissed her forehead, quick and desperate. "Then I better not die." He ran. Through collapsing corridors and falling debris, Rylan raced toward the eastern platforms. Valorian guards tried to stop him, but he spoke with ambassadorial authority and kept moving. The platforms were indeed exposed, sparking with damage from Krillian fire. As explosions lit the sky and debris rained around him, Rylan worked frantically at the controls, his engineering training returning like muscle memory. The defense platforms hummed to life under Rylan's hands, their ancient Valorian technology responding to his desperate engineering. Targeting systems locked onto the Krillian raiders, and within seconds, brilliant beams of crystalline energy lanced through the sky. The first enemy ship exploded, then the second. The third began retreating. But one Krillian fighter, spiraling in its death throes, crashed directly toward the platform where Rylan stood. He didn't have time to run. He thought of Seraphine's violet eyes, her sunset orange skin warm beneath his touch, her blonde hair catching the light. He thought of one perfect night of conversation beneath the stars. If this was how his story ended, at least it had meant something. Then something slammed into him from the side, a blur of orange and gold. Seraphine tackled him off the platform, just as the fighter collided with it in a ball of flame. They tumbled together across the palace rooftop, her body shielding his from the blast. When the world stopped spinning, Rylan found himself staring up at her. She was straddling him, blonde hair wild, face smudged with ash, but alive, gloriously, impossibly alive. "You came back," he gasped. "You fool," she said. But she was crying and laughing at the same time. "You magnificent, brave, impossible fool. Did you really think I'd let you sacrifice yourself alone?" Around them, the remaining Krillian ships were fleeing, Valora's defenses fully operational. Her people were safe. They had won. "I love you," Seraphine said. The words fierce and certain. "I don't care what the advisors say, what our governments think, what anyone believes. I love you, Rylan of Earth." He reached up, cupping her face with a trembling hand. "I love you, Seraphine of Valora. I think I always will." She kissed him then, properly, deeply, a kiss that bridged worlds and species and every impossible obstacle between them. Her lips were soft, tasting of tears and smoke and promise. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. In the weeks that followed, negotiations concluded with unprecedented cooperation. Earth and Valora formed an alliance built not just on trade, but on genuine friendship. And at the center of it all stood an ambassador and a queen whose love story became legend. Some called it scandal, others called it destiny. But Rylan and Seraphine simply called it what it was. Two hearts recognizing each other across the vastness of space, choosing love despite every reason not to. On their bonding ceremony a year later, beneath Valora's twin suns, Seraphine wore flowers in her blonde hair and happiness in her violet eyes. Rylan wore traditional Valorian ceremonial robes and a smile that hadn't faded since the day they met. Love, they proved, needed no translation. It spoke in glances, in choices, in the courage to reach across the impossible distance between souls and say, "You. Always you."